G'day guys, it's Ryan for Sports Science Collective, and today I am reviewing an article that's just come out of the recent Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, titled Olympic Lifting and Plyometric Training with Children Provide Similar or Greater Performance Improvements than Traditional Resistance Training. This one is a new article from Kauchi, Hamami, Kabi, Kamari, Drinkwater, and Bem. So background, well, firstly, it's well known that resistance training, or RT, in children or in any population can lead to improved sporting performance and reduced injury rates. Olympic weightlifting, commonly termed weightlifting, is a style of resistance training, and it's known for its ability to develop explosive power. So there's been quite a bit of research into this, but most notably HAF has found that Olympic weightlifting moves such as cleans, clean and jerk, snatch, etc., are capable of developing roughly 5 times the power of conventional resistance training moves such as deadlift, squat, those that you typically associate with powerlifting. Despite popular belief, Olympic weightlifting has been shown to be a safe type of training in a youth population. It has been suggested that learning these complex skills may actually improve movement competency and body awareness in youth athletes. Another method of training widely used by athletes as a way to increase muscular power is, of course, plyometric training. And there have been numerous meta-analyses, so the highest type of research. So meta-analysis refers to a study that reviews all of the available literature, and numerous meta-analyses have identified that plyometric training is an effective way to develop power, sprint, and explosive performance in athletes. However, somewhat oddly, there are no studies in either the pediatric or adult literature which compare traditional resistance training against Olympic weightlifting or plyometric training. So, of course, the research question for this study was, what are the training effects of Olympic weightlifting, plyometric training, and traditional resistance training in children on functional and physiological measures? So, a bit about the study. Who did it? Well, 63 children between 10 to 12 years of age participated in the study. So, all of the participants were recruited from either a wrestling or a judo program from the local area of Tunisia where the study was performed, and they had no prior strength and conditioning exposure. The 63 children were allocated into either a control group, a resistance training group, an Olympic weightlifting group, or a plyometric training group. Groups were matched for age, weight, and physical development, and all performed bi-weekly training over a 12-week period. Before training, all of the participants underwent except for the control group, underwent a 6-session familiarization protocol in which technique was addressed by certified strength and conditioning coaches. So these athletes weren't just performing complex Olympic movements straight off the bat. They were coached through these with appropriate progressions. So in the article, they talk about starting with dowel or wooden sticks off boxes and performing simple movements such as a shrug into a shrug pull, into a jump shrug, and so on until they got into more complex weightlifting maneuvers. So actually what they did, well, here's a copy of the actual training program that was given to all 3 of the intervention groups. And just to reiterate, this is not ours, this is a review of a study. And this is what all of the different groups were required to do. So you can see the Olympic weightlifting group, they performed cleans, snatches, push press, and an accessory exercise in a kettlebell, dumbbell, cross, body pull. Plyometric group performed maximum counter movement jumps, drop jump from a low platform, and either clap push-ups or medicine ball throws. And the traditional resistance training group performed squats, lunges, incline chest press, and unilateral shoulder flies or presses. So pre and post 12-week training intervention, they assess the following things. So isokinetic strength and power at 60 and 300 degrees per second. So strap them into an isokinetic dynamometer, so a chair, where they measure the force and power in extension and flexion around the knee joint. They also performed a counter movement jump, standing horizontal, sometimes called a broad jump, 5 and 20 meter sprints, static balance or stalk test, so that you can see that on this picture over here, and body mass index. What did they find? Well, firstly, these results are a little confusing to look at if you haven't seen this type before. So to avoid any errors associated with null hypothesis testing, the researchers aim to instead look at magnitude of change and qualitative descriptors associated with that, according to Cohen's protocol. So what this talks about is the likelihood of a change and then the qualitative descriptor associated with that. So you can see down here that each of these descriptors has a size associated to it, and that really talks about the strength, all right, of this correlation. So if something's strong or has a high qualitative descriptor, then you'll give it a very large over the two there. So this is what we're kind of talking about, and it tells us a bit about the likelihood of the change and how strong we expect that change to be, essentially. So anything that's not filled out, really, it's not worth discussing in the sense that there was not great significant changes or differences between these groups. But we'll start from right, so over on the right-hand side of the screen, and go to the left and discuss what was seen. So firstly, in body mass index, well, resistance training, the traditional group, was the only group that had a worthwhile change. So they were 92% more likely compared to the plyometric group and 90% more likely compared to the Olympic weightlifting group to increase in body mass index. But it was only a small, or just sneaks into the moderate, change. So talking about static balance, well, both the Olympic weightlifting group and the plyometric group were likely to have moderate to large changes in static balance. So again, that stalk test. I'm going to skip over the sprint ones here because they're kind of interesting. So I'm not going to talk about them right away. And instead, I'm going to move across to the jump. So the Olympic weightlifting provided the greatest improvements, again, in counter movement and broad jump. And in power, so power at 300, so at 300 degrees per second, looking at the Cybex, or any, indeed, isokinetic dynamometer, the most likelihood of change was the plyometric group. But again, the Olympic weightlifting group here had a big change compared to resistance training. And the plyometric group at force 60 and force 300, so measuring the force, not the power, on the isokinetic dynamometer, were likely to have big increases, so 84% compared to RT and 81% more likely compared to Olympic weightlifting at force 60, and at force 300, 79% likely compared to resistance training, which is a little bit unusual given that the force 60 increased so much, especially that plyometric movements are by nature quite explosive. But perhaps the biggest difference, or the most interesting thing about the study, is that the Olympic weightlifting was the best at improving 5 and 20 meter sprint time, and that the plyometric group had the lowest improvement in 5 and 20 meter sprint time compared to Olympic weightlifting. So the Olympic weightlifting group was more likely to improve in those qualities. So in layman's terms, what to make of this? Well, Olympic weightlifting training and plyometric training were both either as good at or often better than typical resistance training at improving the aforementioned qualities. So Olympic weightlifting was more likely to improve counter movement jump, horizontal jump, and 5 and 20 meter sprint times compared to plyometric training, and more likely to improve balance and isokinetic power compared to typical resistance training. So what does this mean? Well, if performed correctly and with proper coaching, the Olympic weightlifting provides a useful training tool for youth athletes and may result in improved performance and possibly greater movement competency. So this research really adds to the body of literature that Olympic weightlifting training is indeed safe and can be combined with other sorts of training, so plyometric and classical resistance training, to improve the youth athletes' results or physiological qualities, and could, due to its complex movements requiring lots of coordination, improve movement competency, and that was shown by improvements in the stalk stand. So here are the references that we have provided you if you would like to look on those. Otherwise, if you want to find the original copy of the article, head over to Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research and take a look in the latest copy of the journal.